My fiancé's ex tried to ruin our wedding with a fake pregnancy. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. His ex stood up at our rehearsal dinner, pressed a palm to her stomach, and smiled at me. That is the image that still lives in my body. Not my memory, my body. My throat closes when I think about the way the room went quiet, how forks froze in midair, how Caleb's mother actually whispered, "Oh my God," before anyone even asked Vanessa why she was there. She looked beautiful in a way that felt strategic. Cream dress, soft curls, glossy makeup like she had dressed for photographs, not closure. I was standing beside a half-cut lemon cake, holding the cheap silver knife the venue owner had lent us for the toast. My name is Grace. I am 29, and until that exact moment, I thought I was minutes away from the happiest weekend of my life. I even still had my speech folded in my hand. Caleb and I were supposed to get married the next afternoon in a stone courtyard behind a renovated inn outside the city. Nothing flashy. String lights, white roses, my best friend Tessa fixing every tiny disaster before I even noticed one existed. We had spent 14 months building that day together, folding invitations at my kitchen table, arguing over playlists in the car, laughing in IKEA over whether a marriage could survive assembling a guest book stand. I had wanted a wedding because I wanted a beginning I could trust. Then Vanessa, the woman Caleb called a closed chapter, lifted her chin and said, clear enough for both families to hear, "I didn't want to do this publicly, but I'm pregnant. And Caleb is the father." Nobody breathed. Caleb stared at her like he did not understand English anymore. I felt heat travel from my chest to my face so fast it made me dizzy. My first stupid thought was that everyone could see me sweating through my dress. My second was worse. What if she was telling the truth? "Vanessa," Caleb said, finally. "What are you doing?" She didn't look at him. She looked at me. And that was when I realized this announcement had never been about him at all. 3 days before that dinner, I would have told you I trusted Caleb more than anyone I had ever dated. He was not grand or theatrical. He was steady in all the quiet ways that start to feel rare once you hit your late 20s. He remembered the brand of tea I liked when I had cramps. He texted when he got somewhere safe. He would rub circles into the back of my hand when I got overstimulated in crowded places. Loving him felt less like fireworks and more like finally exhaling after years of bracing. When we got engaged, he cried before I did. We were sitting on a blanket in a park near our apartment, eating sandwiches because the restaurant he had booked lost power. It rained halfway through his speech. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the ring box, and I loved him for that. There was nothing polished about us. That was what made it feel real. Vanessa existed in our story mostly as a name I learned not to react to. They had dated on and off for 4 years before me. According to Caleb, the relationship had been too intense to be healthy and over long before it officially ended. According to Tessa, who had met him before I did, Vanessa had a habit of reappearing whenever Caleb looked happy. The first time I heard that, Caleb winced and said, "That makes her sound insane." She's not insane. She just doesn't let go well. That should have sat heavier with me than it did. There had been one small thing I filed away and then intentionally ignored. About 6 months into dating, I saw her name flash across his phone while we were ordering takeout. He declined the call so fast, it almost looked rehearsed. I asked if everything was okay, and he gave me this tired smile and said, "She still calls when something goes wrong in her life." I don't answer. I just want peace. I remember nodding because peace sounded mature. Peace sounded better than drama. Peace sounded like the grown-up choice. What I should have asked was why a woman from his past still believed she had a place in his emergencies. I kept thinking that until the day her first message landed in mine. The sabotage did not begin with the rehearsal dinner. It began 2 weeks earlier, in little cuts so subtle I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. The first thing was an Instagram request from Vanessa. No message, just the request. Her profile photo showed her laughing on a rooftop somewhere, all polished angles and expensive-looking sunlight. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, she liked 3 of my old engagement photos in a row. Not recent ones. Old ones. The kind you have to scroll for. Tessa looked over my shoulder and said, "That is not an accident. That is a woman tapping on your window." I blocked her and moved on. Then an envelope showed up at our apartment with no return address. Inside was a single card from the bridal boutique where I had bought my dress. Nothing written inside, Just my full name on the front in elegant black ink. Caleb turned it over, frowned, and said maybe the store had mailed something weird by mistake. But when I called, they told me they had not sent any handwritten cards that week. I remember standing by the sink with my phone against my ear, staring at that blank card like it might suddenly explain itself. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Are you sure you know everything about him before you marry him? No signature. No follow-up. Just that one sentence sitting on my screen while I was choosing linen colors for the reception tables. I showed Caleb that message. He swore he had not spoken to Vanessa in months. He offered to call the number, then said maybe that would only feed it. She likes reaction, he said. If it's her, ignoring her is the best move. If? I asked. He scrubbed a hand over his face. It probably is. Probably. Another word I should have hated sooner. The worst part was how reasonable he sounded. Not defensive. Not guilty. Just exhausted. Like Vanessa was bad weather and the only smart response was staying indoors. So I let him talk me down. I told myself crazy ex stories become bigger when you feed them. I told myself mature women do not get rattled by ghost texts and weird stationery. Then I saw Vanessa outside my dress fitting, waiting like she'd been invited. I had gone to the bridal shop with Tessa and Caleb's sister, Mara, for the final fitting. It was supposed to be one of those light, happy days women remember forever. Pins between teeth, champagne and plastic flutes. Everybody pretending not to cry while the hem got adjusted. Instead, I walked out carrying a garment bag and saw Vanessa leaning against a black SUV across the lot in oversized sunglasses. Tessa swore under her breath. Mara said no, absolutely not. Vanessa pushed off the car and came toward us slowly, one hand resting against the strap of her purse. Grace, she said, like we were meeting for coffee. You look nervous. Why are you here? Tessa snapped. Vanessa ignored her and looked at me. I tried to handle this privately. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like missing a stair. Handle what? She tilted her head. Asked Caleb. I wanted to say something sharp, something clean and devastating, but all I could hear was my own pulse. Mara stepped in front of me and told Vanessa to leave. Vanessa gave this small, almost pitying shrug, then said, I'm not trying to ruin anything. I just think women deserve the truth before they make permanent decisions. By the time I found my voice, she was already getting back into the SUV. That should have been the scene that broke everything open. It wasn't. Somehow, even after I told Caleb, the night still moved forward. He looked genuinely rattled when I described it. He said he had no idea how she knew where my fitting was. He said maybe Mara had posted a story and Vanessa saw the location tag. He said he would call Vanessa and tell her to stop, then immediately added, actually, no, she wants attention. I'll text. Better to keep it in writing. He showed me the text before he sent it. Do not contact Grace again. Do not come near our wedding events. This is inappropriate and needs to stop. She left him on read. The next evening, during the rehearsal dinner, the venue was warm with candlelight and everyone kept clinking glasses for toasts. I had just thanked our families for coming when the back doors opened. Vanessa walked in without rushing, as if she belonged there. A few people turned. Then everyone did. Caleb went pale before she ever touched her stomach. I do not remember setting the cake knife down. I remember Tessa grabbing my elbow because my knees had gone loose. I remember Caleb's aunt whispering, "This cannot be happening," like saying it softly might make it false. Mostly I remember Vanessa's face, calm, composed, almost tender, as if she were delivering tragic news instead of detonating my wedding. Caleb found his voice first. You need to leave. Right now. Vanessa laughed once. So that's your plan? Pretend I don't exist? I said leave. And I said I'm pregnant. His mother stood up so fast her chair screeched. Caleb, she said, and that one word held accusation, panic, and pleading all at once. I'm not the father, he shot back. Vanessa looked directly at me again. He said that to me too. That hit the room like another explosion. Mara started arguing with one of their cousins. Tessa moved fully in front of me like a shield. Somebody near the bar took out a phone, and I wanted to die from the knowledge that even if they were not recording, they could be. Humiliation is a physical thing. It makes your skin feel too tight. I finally managed. Why are you doing this here? Because private conversations didn't work, Vanessa said. Because he ignored me. Because I'm not going to be erased. Caleb took one step toward her. There was no private conversation. We haven't slept together. We haven't even. She cut in. Are you calling me a liar in front of your entire family? He hesitated. 1 second, maybe less. But I felt it anyway. Not because I thought he was guilty. Because I needed him to flatten the whole thing instantly. And conflict is where Caleb always went soft around the edges. He looked toward his mother, then toward me, as if he was trying to stop 6 fires at once. That tiny flicker of divided attention sliced right through me. His uncle muttered that maybe everyone should calm down. One of Vanessa's friends said stress was bad for the baby. Tessa barked, "What baby?" Then Caleb's mother turned to me and said the sentence that changed how I saw his family forever. "Grace, please don't overreact until we know the facts." I walked out before I started screaming, and Caleb followed me into the dark parking lot. The night air hit my face like cold water, but it did nothing to steady me. I could hear the chaos still spilling from the venue. Chairs scraping, too many voices, someone crying. Caleb came through the doors seconds later, saying my name like he was afraid it might shatter if he said it too loudly. "Grace, listen to me. She's lying." "Then why didn't you say that like you meant it?" "I did." "No, I said. You told her to leave. You argued about being ignored. You acted shocked. You did not kill it." His face tightened in that wounded way I hated because it always made me feel like I was the one being cruel. How do I prove a negative in 30 seconds while my whole family is freaking out? "You start by not looking scared of her." That landed. He stared at me, breathing hard. "I'm not scared of her. I'm scared of this. Of what she's doing." I wanted to believe him. I still did, which was the worst part. Love does not evaporate just because humiliation enters the room. It makes you stand in a parking lot wearing pearl earrings and ask the man you were supposed to marry whether his ex might actually be carrying his child. He swore there had been no cheating, no late-night lapse, no drunken mistake. The last time he had seen Vanessa, he said, was nearly 8 months ago at a coffee shop where she just happened to appear while he was meeting a client. They had spoken for maybe 5 minutes. "Grace," he said, voice shaking now. "The timing doesn't even make sense." Back in the apartment after midnight, with mascara dried under my eyes and my dress still smelling like venue candles, I replayed every word Vanessa had said. She had told his family she was almost 12 weeks. She mentioned morning sickness, then later told someone she had only found out last week. She said she had gone to Cedar Women's Clinic for confirmation. I knew that name because my annual gynecologist was there, and they did not do after-hours walk-ins like the one she described. I sat up on the couch so fast Tessa asked what was wrong. "Her story is messy," I said. Tessa grabbed her phone and said, "Good. Let's make it worse for her." We turned my living room into a war room at 1 in the morning. Tessa had her laptop open. I had a notepad, and Caleb sat at the far end of the couch looking wrecked and helpless and just useful enough not to throw out. Love, rage, and logistics had all braided together into something sharp. "Start with facts," Tessa said. "No feelings. We can have those later." So we did. Vanessa claimed she was almost 12 weeks pregnant. Fine. I counted backward. That put conception in a window when Caleb and I had been in Seattle visiting my brother for 5 days, then back home together because I had food poisoning and Caleb literally slept on our bathroom floor one night. I pulled up photos, flight confirmations, restaurant receipts, even a video Tessa had posted of Caleb carrying electrolyte drinks into my apartment at 11:18 p.m. on a date Vanessa's timeline supposedly required him to be sneaking around with her. Caleb unlocked his phone and gave me every message he had kept from Vanessa. There were not many, but enough remained to map a pattern. Every few months, she sent some variation of "Hope you're okay, can we talk, or you owe me a real conversation." He either ignored her or sent one dry response telling her to move on. The most recent message was from 6 weeks earlier. "Saw your engagement photos." Funny how fast people rewrite history. Then Tessa found something stranger. On Vanessa's public TikTok, buried between skincare videos and apartment decor clips, there was a short post from 7 weeks earlier where she held a champagne flute at a rooftop party. The caption said, "Finally feeling like myself again." People who are pregnant sometimes still drink before they know. But Vanessa was now claiming she had known for weeks before that event. "Could be old," Caleb said quietly. Tessa zoomed in. "The banner says July 4th at Harbor House. Date specific." I called Cedar Women's Clinic the next morning and asked if they confirmed pregnancies by phone after hours through an emergency line. The receptionist said no. Appointments only. I hung up and looked at Tessa. She either lied, I said, or she got sloppier than she expected. Tessa narrowed her eyes at my screen. Grace, she said, where did she get that ultrasound photo? I had forgotten about the ultrasound because Vanessa had only flashed it for a second at the rehearsal dinner, holding her phone chest high while Caleb's mother leaned in. But Mara, bless her spiteful little heart, had snapped a blurry photo in the middle of the chaos because she said Vanessa looked too rehearsed not to be lying. When she texted it to us, it was grainy, crooked, and still enough. Tessa enlarged the screen until the pixels blurred. Can you make out the clinic name? Not at first, but there was a logo in the corner and a date stamp across the top, or what looked like one. I sent the image to a friend from college who now did digital cleanup for a local news station. I did not tell her the whole story, just asked if she could sharpen text on a screenshot. 20 minutes later, she sent back a clearer version in one sentence. Weird layering on the date stamp. Looks edited. The clinic logo belonged to a place in Arizona. We lived in Ohio. I stared at the screen, then at Caleb. Have you ever been to Arizona with Vanessa? No. Tessa was already reverse searching the image. It took her 4 minutes to find a mommy forum post from almost 2 years earlier. A user in Phoenix had uploaded an ultrasound announcement with the exact same grain pattern, same fetal position, same dark smudge near the corner. Vanessa's image was not just suspicious. It was stolen. For one insane second, I felt relief so strong it made me laugh. She was lying. She was actually lying. This could be ended. Then the relief thinned, because a fake ultrasound was not the whole story. It explained the prop, not the motive. People do not risk public humiliation and family backlash unless they think the lie will buy them something big. What does she want? I asked. Nobody answered right away. Then Caleb said, barely above a whisper, she hates being left. That was too simple and somehow not enough. Vanessa had not shown up devastated. She had shown up prepared. Time to maximum damage. This was not a woman acting out in one reckless burst. This was a campaign. Then my phone lit up with a voicemail from an unknown number. I played the voicemail on speaker with the volume all the way up. Vanessa's voice came through soft and controlled. The same tone she used at the venue when she pretended dignity was the same thing as innocence. Grace, I know Caleb is going to make me sound unstable. That's what he does when he can't control the story. I'm not asking you for anything. I just think you deserve to know he made promises to me too. Tessa mouthed too. The message kept going. Vanessa said she had protected Caleb's reputation long enough, and that if I had any self-respect, I would ask him about the night he came to her apartment in March. Then she added, he'll deny it because he always chooses the easier woman. That line sat in the room like poison. Caleb swore March was impossible. He was with me nearly every night that month because my landlord had started tearing open the walls in my building for emergency plumbing repairs. Still, Vanessa's phrasing bothered me. Not because I believed her, but because it sounded personal in a way that suggested a bigger audience. She was not just trying to wound me. She was staging a narrative. Mara helped crack that part. Around noon she called and said, you need to see her Facebook. Vanessa had locked down most of her posts, but one public album from 8 weeks earlier showed a baby shower for her cousin. In the comments, an older woman wrote, you next hopefully, winky face, and Vanessa replied, sooner than you think. Then Mara sent a screenshot from a private bridal-style Facebook group she was in. Someone had posted anonymously about discovering my ex is marrying a rebound while still tied to me forever. The details were vague, but the timing matched, and the language was unmistakably Vanessa's. Same polished victimhood, same obsession with being erased. She had been building emotional witnesses before she ever walked into our rehearsal dinner. That was when motive stopped feeling abstract. This isn't about a baby, I said slowly. Tessa nodded. It's about making herself impossible to move past. I should have felt empowered by that clarity. Instead, I felt sick, because obsessive people do not fold when cornered. And that night, Caleb asked me not to take this any further publicly. We sat across from each other at our kitchen table with cold takeout between us and no appetite left. The apartment looked like a life paused mid-sentence. Seating chart cards on the counter. My half-packed overnight bag by the door. Ordinary wedding debris scattered around a disaster. Caleb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Grace, please. Let me deal with Vanessa quietly. I laughed once because I honestly could not help it. Quietly, she announced a fake pregnancy at our rehearsal dinner. I know how bad this is. Do you? His face went hard with hurt, then softened again. I'm trying to protect what's left of this weekend. If we turn this into some public takedown, she wins. She wants spectacle. I stared at him. And what do you call what she already got? He rubbed both hands over his face. A nightmare. I also call it something my family does not need played out in front of every guest and every phone camera. There it was. His real fear. Not truth. Fallout. I almost gave in. That is the humiliating part to admit. I almost let him persuade me because exhaustion can imitate forgiveness when you have not slept. I wanted my wedding back. I wanted normal. Then Tessa, who had been in the bedroom pretending to give us space while absolutely not giving us space, walked out with my laptop open. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry, but private is dead. She turned the screen toward us. It was a screen recording from Vanessa's Instagram story archive, pulled by one of Tessa's friends who followed her. The clip had been posted the morning of our rehearsal dinner and deleted sometime after the scene. Vanessa was in her car, camera angled up, lipstick perfect, saying, "Some women only care when they're embarrassed in front of witnesses. That's fine. Tonight will clear up a lot." No pregnancy mention. No tears. No panic. Just anticipation. Caleb went white. I felt something inside me settle into steel. She planned this, I said. Tessa folded her arms. Now ask yourself why someone innocent preps an audience before telling the truth. Caleb opened his mouth, but I was already reaching for my phone. Because there was one person I suddenly needed to call. The person I called was Dr. Molina, my gynecologist at Cedar Women's Clinic. Not because I expected her to discuss Vanessa. She could not and would not. But she knew the clinic's procedures, and she could hear panic under composure. I kept the question narrow. If someone showed family members an ultrasound supposedly from your clinic, would the clinic name and date always be embedded in the original image? Yes, she said carefully. Generated automatically. Can those details be manually added later? A pause. Not by us. That was all I needed. Then Tessa got luckier than we deserved. One of her cousins, Lena, worked part-time at Harbor House, the rooftop venue from Vanessa's July 4th TikTok. Lena checked the reservation system and confirmed Vanessa had attended that event with a man named Ethan Cole, listed as her +1. When Lena searched his tag posts, we found him. Same jawline as the blurred reflection in one of Vanessa's mirror selfies. Same watch visible on her passenger seat in a video from August. Same dog appearing in her apartment stories weeks apart. Maybe Ethan was nothing. Maybe a rebound. But paired with the fake ultrasound, the false clinic claim, and the timeline math, he widened the crack into a canyon. Mara contributed the final piece. During the rehearsal dinner chaos, Vanessa had gone into the restroom with Caleb's mother for almost 10 minutes. Mara had been outside the door and heard Vanessa crying that she had already told someone else and could not take this back now. At the time, it sounded dramatic. Now it sounded like confession. We built the folder carefully. Tessa labeled everything like an attorney. Timeline, Arizona ultrasound match, clinic procedure notes, deleted story video, July 4th post, +1 connection, Mara statement. Caleb watched us with an unreadable face. Grace, he said finally, you don't have to do this tomorrow. Yes, I said. I do. We still had one pre-wedding gathering left on the schedule. A family brunch at the inn, close enough to private that no outsider could hijack it, public enough that Vanessa could not twist the outcome later. At 11:07 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new message from her. You really should stop digging before you embarrass yourself worse. The brunch started at 10. By 10:10, every conversation sounded fake. People were trying so hard to act normal that it only made the tension louder. Caleb's mother would not meet my eyes. His uncle kept over-explaining the orange juice station. Tessa sat beside me in a green dress like a dressed-up bodyguard. I had printed copies of everything in a white folder that had originally held our ceremony readings. Vanessa arrived at 10:23. No one had invited her. Again, she wore a pale blue wrap dress and that same wounded, elegant expression. Caleb stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. No, he said. Vanessa ignored him and focused on his mother. I came because I thought we were handling this respectfully. That was my cue. Perfect, I said, standing. My hands were shaking, but my voice was weirdly calm. Let's be respectful. The room went silent. I walked to the end of the table, opened the folder, and laid the first sheet down in front of Vanessa. It was the side-by-side comparison of her ultrasound and the Phoenix Forum image. That photo is stolen, I said. Same image, same scan, posted online 2 years ago by someone in Arizona. Vanessa did not touch the page. That's ridiculous. I laid down the second sheet. You told people Cedar Women's Clinic confirmed your pregnancy after hours. They don't do that. Then the timeline. Then the July 4th champagne post. Then the deleted story where she predicted tonight will clear up a lot. Then Mara's statement. Then Lena's note about Ethan Cole, her +1 at Harbor House. This doesn't prove anything, Vanessa snapped. It proves enough, I said. And here's the contradiction you can't fix. You told his family you were almost 12 weeks. But your own content places you drinking publicly, planning this stunt, and attached to another man during the timeline you claimed Caleb got you pregnant. Caleb's mother made this small broken sound. Vanessa looked around the table, searching for a sympathetic face and finding none. Then she said the dumbest thing she possibly could have said. I wouldn't have had to do any of this if he hadn't abandoned me first. The room cracked open after that. Not all at once. First with a breath, then a chair scrape, then Caleb saying, very quietly, there it is. I had never heard his voice sound like that before. Not angry, not soft, just done. Vanessa realized it too late. That is not what I meant. Yes, it is, Tessa said. Caleb's mother sat down hard and covered her mouth. Mara muttered, unbelievable. His uncle, who had spent the last day insisting everyone slow down, now stared at Vanessa like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Nobody rushed to comfort her. Vanessa tried one last pivot. She said I was twisting evidence, that stress had messed with her memory, that the image mix-up was because her friends sent her the wrong screenshot in panic. But lies collapse differently once motive shows. They stop sounding plausible and start sounding greedy. Caleb stood up. Do not contact Grace again. Do not contact my family. Do not come near our wedding, our home, or our jobs. If you do, I'll treat it as harassment. For the first time since I had met her, Vanessa looked genuinely rattled. Then her mask broke completely. She laughed, ugly and sharp. She said I had won a man who needed managing. She told Caleb his family only loved easy women. She called me naive, then pathetic for thinking exposure fixed damage. She accused his mother of judging her while secretly enjoying the drama. It was rage looking for targets. A few hours earlier, it would have destroyed me. Now it only confirmed everything I had learned. Tessa opened the inn doors and said, you can leave. Vanessa hesitated, maybe waiting for someone to stop her, to soften, to salvage her dignity. No one did. She picked up her purse with stiff, trembling hands and walked out into the winter-bright morning alone. Silence lasted maybe 5 seconds after the door shut. Then Caleb's mother turned to me with tears already falling and said, I am so sorry. I believe she meant it. I also hated that I had needed to bleed in public before receiving it. Because even after Vanessa was gone, the wreckage stayed behind. Guests had still witnessed the accusation. And when Caleb reached for my hand, I flinched before I could stop myself. That tiny movement hurt him more than anything Vanessa had said. We did not get married that afternoon. People love neat endings, but real betrayal, even secondhand betrayal, even sabotage you can disprove, does not clear on demand just because the villain gets exposed. By noon I knew I could not walk into the courtyard, say vows about trust, and pretend my nervous system was not still on fire. Caleb knew it too before I said it. He looked destroyed when I told him we needed to postpone, but he did not argue. Maybe for the first time in this whole mess, he understood that keeping peace and building safety were not the same thing. The venue coordinator was kinder than she had to be. We lost money. Flowers went to guests. The cake got boxed. The string quartet played for a lunch nobody tasted. I changed out of my dress in the bridal suite while Tessa unpinned my hair and did not say a word until I asked her to. That night Caleb came to the apartment with no expectations and one duffel bag because I had told him that I needed space. He sat on the edge of the armchair while I stayed standing in the kitchen doorway. We talked for almost 3 hours. I told him the pregnancy lie was Vanessa's fault, but the conditions that let it explode this far were not. His conflict avoidance had trained everyone around him to treat discomfort like something to manage quietly instead of confront honestly. He had minimized Vanessa for years because he wanted the problem to feel smaller than it was. He did not interrupt. He did not defend himself. He just listened, eyes red, hands locked together. So I laid out boundaries. Therapy before any new wedding date. A written no-contact notice sent through an attorney. Full transparency if Vanessa or anyone connected to her ever reached out again. No more, let's keep this private, when privacy only served the manipulator. I would not marry a man who confused calm with courage. He nodded after each one. Okay, he said. Trust did not rush back because he sounded sincere. But something steadier began. 3 months later, after therapy and a lot of ugly conversations, we had a tiny ceremony in my brother's backyard with 12 people and no audience for anyone's performance. I almost believed the worst was over. Then a plain white envelope showed up in our mailbox with no stamp. For 10 full seconds after I pulled that envelope out, I could not breathe right. Trauma is embarrassing that way. You know one anonymous envelope is not a prophecy, but your body remembers blank cards, rehearsal doors, public humiliation. Caleb saw my face and took it from me carefully, like the paper itself might bite. Inside was a single folded note from the attorney who had handled the harassment notice. Vanessa had signed the acknowledgement. No apology, no admission, just legal confirmation that she had received the warning and was not to contact us again. I sat on the front steps and laughed until I cried. That was 4 months ago. Since then, nothing. No messages. No surprise appearances. No ghosts tapping on the glass. The silence feels earned now, not fragile. Caleb is still in therapy. So am I. We are married because he learned that protecting a relationship means facing ugly things early, out loud, and without hoping they disappear on their own. And I learned that being understanding is not the same thing as being safe. People ask whether I regret staying. Sometimes I answer yes for 1 second, just for the version of me who had to stand under string lights while another woman weaponized my future. But regret is not the whole truth. I do not regret postponing. I do not regret exposing her publicly. I do not regret every hard boundary that followed. If anything, I regret how often women are trained to call their instincts insecurity when their instincts are simply pattern recognition with a pulse. So here is my practical advice. If a person from your partner's past keeps finding ways to enter your present, that is not drama you rise above by staying pleasant. It is information. Take screenshots. Write dates down. Ask specific questions. Pay attention to who wants clarity and who only wants quiet. One builds trust. The other only buys time for the next disaster. Sometimes love survives the truth. Sometimes it doesn't. But self-respect has to survive either way. On our real wedding day, the sun dropped through my brother's maple tree and turned everything gold for 5 minutes. Caleb squeezed my hand, and this time I did not flinch.